After I published my second completely free game on Steam, I decided to rest a bit by doing something else in game development. But what can possibly be more fun than game development, you might ask? Playing video games all the day? Nah. Going outside to touch some grass? Not going to happen. I know it. It is web development. The next 3 months I spent learning web development to extend my horizon. I already had some experience with JavaScript, TypeScript and C#, so after 3 months I had my own custom Kanban style to-do app. But during those 3 months, I had so many different ideas for different games I could make. So after completing my custom to-do app, I decided to start working on the next big game. You have to know, all of my current Steam releases weren't actually planned to become Steam releases in the first place. They were just practice projects, one better than the other. So with a game that I've been actively planning for about 2 months, I was just too hyped to start working on that game. So, everything started with a brand new Unreal Engine project and a new GitHub repository. But what do I actually want to do? Essentially, I want to combine my two favorite game genres into one game, a roguelite and an RPG. You will be able to see what I mean by that in future devlogs when the time comes. The first thing the game actually needed is a movement system, and that was actually pretty simple, I thought, because the standard UE5 top-down template, which I used for the project, already had a movement system. I was aiming for Hades-like movement, but way slower. I have to think more about where to move than just dashing around while spamming the attack button. But the already made movement from the template felt very bad for that purpose. Imagine an action roguelite where you have to wait for 2 seconds just for your character to accelerate a bit. It just felt very, very bad. Trying to fix the movement, I added a simple dash mechanic. The dash made the movement feel a lot better, but not great. After even more trial and error, I decided to let the movement system be a movement system and come to it later, which was a great choice in retro perspective. I quickly implemented a small health system and UI to show your current health, as well as weapons which the player can use to attack future enemies or break boxes, for example. For the start, I created 2 weapons to test, a blunt hammer and a staff. The plan is that there are a lot of different weapons, every single weapon playing differently than the other, with different animations and different stats. But for now, different weapons will only have different stats, because animating will be a future problem for the future me. Now that weapons are in the game, I needed something to attack. The next logical step was to implement some basic prototype enemies. By prototype, I mean just build a backend system to be able to have enemies. For the navigation, I used Unreal's built-in navmesh system, which I already used for my first project Kitchen Quest. It is very easy to set up and way more performant than any of my custom solutions, which I for example used for Ultima Nex. For the logic, there are multiple things I could do. First, behavior trees. This is industry standard and allows for very complex AI behavior. But since UE 5.4, I think, there's a new system called state tree, which Epic Games is trying to make the new standard for AI behavior in Unreal Engine. In state trees, you define the actions an AI can do in different states. And based on events and other data, the enemy can change the states. The third option, which I also used for both my previous Steam games, is a little state machine all powered by C++. But for this game, I wanted to give the behavior trees and state machines a shot, but ultimately decided to use state machines. For me, they're way more intuitive and way more performant for my needs. By that, I made my first new enemy, the Frost Cube. It is very simple. It literally just walks or hovers towards you, and if it's near you, it jumps over you, shooting projectiles in every direction when landing. It is a really easy concept, but for the sake of demonstration, this enemy actually worked pretty well. Every test I hated the enemy because it was just too annoying, but knowing that the enemy will only exist during the prototype made them feel a little bit better. Another enemy I added was a small frost golem. The idea of this enemy was a ranged enemy who shoots basic projectiles at you. Pretty simple, right? Just spawn an actor, when it collides with something, check whether it's damageable and just do the damage. Wrong. The problem is that the projectile has a bit of gravity, so naturally the enemy should shoot a bit higher to account for that gravity based on the distance the projectile will travel, but calculating the angle where to shoot from is way out of my horizon. So I spent way too much time researching how to solve the problem, scrolling to the endless desert of Wikipedia, watching multiple videos by physics teachers just to find out that in the new gameplay statics class, where there is already a static function that does exactly what I want. Guess I have something to impress my physics teacher with then. Going through the source code of the function, it actually looks kinda similar to the formulas also shown in the Wikipedia article, but I don't care, it just works, so. During that time, I also made my procedural room generation system, which at the time was just placing room after room, and with a small chance, also generating 2 rooms which you could choose one of them by going in the portals that are placed at the end of each room, kinda like the system in Hades works too. That system was also just a prototype system which I quickly made just to have more rooms that I can go through. The biggest change that almost persists until now is the new camera perspective and movement. At the time, I was playing a lot of Hades. The new character instantly accelerates, the angle of the camera perspective is now at roughly 45 degrees, and the character is now attacking in the direction of the mouse pointer. At that time, I really liked the new movement system. It was definitely a large improvement over the old camera perspective and movement, and this was the first time the game actually made it kind of fun. With the new motivation of actually having something that feels okay to play, I started a lot of progress in a little time. Procedurally placed enemies, 2 new enemies, a Drauga and a Miner, time dilation, new sword animations, and many optimizations. I also made damage numbers, which I'm very proud of, because they aren't just the OMG which is placed in the world, no, they are highly performant Niagara systems that run in the GPU and cost almost nothing to execute. Using my last energy, I finished the prototype by implementing the first iteration on passive abilities. Currently, as soon as you complete a room, you can select one out of the 3 passive abilities by dragging the ability into one of the corresponding ability slots. The important catch? That you can only have as many passive abilities as you have slots for them, but some of the abilities only fit into specific slots. It is planned that you can change your layout in the future meta progression update. Additionally, once you have one category full, you will get a specific active ability depending on the passive abilities you have put into the slots. So if every passive changes something to your physical damage, your active ability will very likely also change something that has something to do with your physical damage. Currently there are not a lot of different abilities, just boring stat improvements, but that will change once the game will be further in development. If you like what you are seeing, I would appreciate if you liked and subscribed. In the next devlog, we will talk about the new graphics I made for the game, as well as a rework to the level generator. If you want to be part of the development, I would love you to join the Discord for the game, link in the description.